Hey guys, welcome to a new video, and in today's video we're going to be looking at another 2020 election prediction, and in this prediction we're going to be doing Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump, the incumbent U.S. president. So, before we start, let's just talk about some terms of this matchup. For starters, looking at Bernie Sanders, he's pushing it in age. He was pushing it in age in 2016, let alone in 2020. I think he'll be like 78 in 2020, I don't remember. Not just him, but Donald Trump is also pushing age. Donald Trump is going to be 74 in 2020 during that election. So, it's really going to be age between both candidates, assuming this matchup were to occur. Sanders is really old, and people are going to make sure that is known. The only reason I don't think that people would make a big deal out of Trump's age is because he would be an incumbent president, and incumbency would cause a lot of leniency on the case of Donald Trump for a lot of independents especially, and Republicans too. So I think incumbency will lenient the age of Donald Trump in the 2020 election. With Sanders, he serves in the U.S. Senate right now. I don't think it'll be long before he does not serve in the Senate anymore. Like I said, he's pushing an age. He knows he's pushing an age. His Senate colleagues know he's pushing an age, and I don't think that he's going to be serving in the Senate much longer at his age. At his discretion, of course, but I just don't see him staying in that long. So without further ado, let's get into the safe states for each candidate. First off, the East Coast for Bernie Sanders. This for Donald Trump. I'm going to give Minnesota to Bernie Sanders just because Hillary Clinton won it and whatnot. And he's probably going to do good in the Rust Belt as opposed to Hillary Clinton. So I'm going to give him Pennsylvania too. And New Hampshire. I'm going to give him New Hampshire just because of people knowing him up there in that region. And it's very popular in the Northeast. Sort of like Elizabeth Warren is. White. Okay, these are the safe states for each candidate, and already Sanders is up to 222 and Trump is up to 115. So Sanders comes into this with a really big already advantage over Donald Trump. So let's start in Nevada. Nevada, I think that is going to go likely for Sanders. It went for Clinton, and to be honest, any Democratic state that went for Clinton, or any, should I say, swing state that went for Hillary Clinton, will probably go for Bernie Sanders in a somewhat reasonably safe margin. Just because if, to put this in the least bad terms necessary, if any swing state that goes for somebody as corrupt as, as Wall Street and corporation corrupt as Hillary Clinton, why would it not go for somebody as, lenient on that, or not lenient, but as strict on that stuff as Bernie Sanders? So that's why I'm going to give him Colorado too. And Arizona, I'm going to lean, or actually I'm going to go likely for Donald Trump. I just don't think he'll pull out the minority numbers like Hillary Clinton did. Hillary had the partial Obama coalition with her. And when I say the partial Obama coalition, I think she had more of the Hispanic vote. I think she had more of the black vote than Bernie Sanders would in a general election. Bernie Sanders is just kind of that Northeast guy. Hillary Clinton was actually she's Obama she's Obama with the Wall Street corruption, if you want to put it in any sort of, like terms. She is just basically Obama in a pantsuit and with Wall Street corruption. So, I think Bernie Sanders have a hard time pulling out. However, Hillary Clinton closed that margin like she did. And the same thing in Texas. Bernie Sanders just wouldn't have the strength to close the gap in Texas. Or, not the strength, he just wouldn't have, it just wouldn't be there to pull out the numbers like Hillary Clinton did. Iowa, I'm going to give that solidly for Trump. I think that Bernie Sanders wouldn't have a chance in Iowa either. Well, let's not give that solidly for Trump. Let's do that likely for Trump. I just don't think he'd have a chance at flipping it away from Trump. I think the only Democrat that would have a chance at flipping that away from Donald Trump is somebody similar to Obama. So I think that Iowa is going to stick pretty solidly in the Republican column, although I'm just going to give it likely to Trump at this point. In the state of Wisconsin, I think Bernie Sanders would flip Wisconsin. I think he, in the entire Rust Belt, I think he's going to have the strength to flip all of it. And so I'm actually just going to lean Michigan to him, but I think he would win Michigan. I also think he'd win Virginia. Probably stronger than Clinton, to be honest. So that already surpasses him. He's already at 276 to Trump's 170. So he already wins the election just with the Rust Belt flipping in his favor. The state of North Carolina, I think, would ever so slightly lean for Bernie Sanders, only because of his popularity with young people. Hillary Clinton did not appeal to these people because she was not a populist like Donald Trump claimed he was. People in North Carolina, people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, Ohio are going to vote with how much money they have in their pocket. So if, the unemployment rate in this area tends to be higher in 2020, this might go for Bernie Sanders more than I projected right here. But if this area is, has a very low unemployment rate, like lower than when Trump took office, this area is probably going to go much higher than what I projected for Bernie Sanders here. My mistake earlier, I think I said it'd go higher if the unemployment rate was higher. It'd go much lower for Donald Trump if the unemployment rate was higher. And if it was lower, then it would go much more for Trump than it would Sanders. So that's how the Rust Belt's going to work. They're going to vote with their pockets. If they have a lot of money in their pockets, they're going to go for Trump. If they have less money in their pockets than they did, or even just the same amount of money in their pockets that they did when Trump took office, I see it going pretty solidly for Bernie Sanders. So now the state of Georgia, I think that goes solidly for Trump. Bernie Sanders just can't do what Hillary Clinton did in some of these states. He's just not conservative enough. You look at Arizona, you look at Texas, you look at Iowa, you look at Georgia. These places have independents that lean conservative. They are traditionally conservative-leaning independents. However, they can flip. They are still traditionally leaning Republican. That's how these independents work. That's how the Rust Belt is too. The Rust Belt has traditionally liberal-leaning independents, as does Colorado, as does Nevada, as does Virginia, as does Maine, New Hampshire. That's just how these regions work. Hillary Clinton being more conservative than, say, Bernie Sanders or Barack Obama, I think that's why she ran up the margin she did in states like Texas or states like Georgia or states like Arizona. She made those razor-tight races going into the last week of the elections. And it especially surprised me in the state of Texas. You see Arizona, you see Georgia. Those demographics have been slowly filtering more Democratic for the past 4 election cycles, but you see a state like Texas and you say, wow, you know, a state like Texas doesn't just flip in one election like it did for Hillary Clinton, but it did, and it's because the independents that lean more conservative went for Hillary Clinton because she was more conservative. And that was like that in not only Texas, but Arizona, in Georgia, and North Carolina, and, you know, all those states. I think she even, yeah, there was a very close margin in Utah even. That was because of Evan McMullin, but still, you know, you saw these razor-thin elections in some of these states that are traditionally Republican. In the state of Indiana, I think that goes for Donald Trump just because of the Mike Pence effect. If he didn't have Mike Pence, that might be very, very close election like it was for Obama, and it might have been a close election in 2016, assuming he didn't have Mike Pence as well. In the state of Ohio, I think that one would lean to Donald Trump. I just don't think Bernie Sanders would pick that up. I think it'd be closer than it was in 2016, much, much closer than it was in 2016, but I don't think it would go enough for Bernie Sanders. In the state of Florida, I think would ever so slightly lean for Bernie Sanders. This is a very, very confident call that I'm making here in Florida, but I'm going to ever so slightly lean it for Bernie Sanders. Probably, maybe even closer than it was in 2016. Maybe taking hours, days to project the state of Florida an election between Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. But I'm going to lean it to Bernie Sanders. In the state of Maine, I'm going to lean that district to Bernie Sanders and then lean that district to Donald Trump. So giving Bernie Sanders 3 electoral votes in Maine, and Donald Trump 1 electoral vote. So, here's the electoral map. I gave 322 to Bernie Sanders to 216 to Donald Trump. Mainly because, why would Bernie Sanders not flip these states that Hillary Clinton had so close in, is the question that a lot of people are going to make, and it's because Bernie Sanders just isn't conservative enough like Hillary Clinton to turn the tides of the race in his favor in these states like Texas, like Arizona, like Georgia, that they made so close in 2016. If we had a person like Cory Booker, you might see the state of Arizona go lean Democrat. You might see the state of Georgia only lean Republican. You know, if you had a person like Kane, you might see Texas flip slightly into the Democratic column. You might see Georgia slightly slip into the Democratic column by a very small margin. If you had a candidate like Amy Klobuchar, you might see in this sort of race a state like Iowa begin to flip into the Democratic column. And these states flipping into the Democratic column as well. But with a person like Sanders, you just don't have the conservatism that you need to flip these states, like Hillary Clinton almost did. You know, I wouldn't have been surprised to see Hillary Clinton flip one or even all of these 3 states in the 2016 election. I don't think anybody would have. Because those states were close because of how conservative Hillary Clinton actually is. People see Hillary Clinton running with the Democratic ticket and they're like, oh, well, she is as liberal, she is as progressive as you are going to get. But in reality, that is not true. Hillary Clinton is as conservative of a candidate in the United States running as a Democrat as you are going to get. Do I think there are candidates that could close these gaps enough to flip these states off of the Hillary effect from 2016? Yes, I do. I think there are plenty of speculative candidates that could flip what Hillary Clinton already, you know, has caused in these states. So I think that I don't think Sanders is conservative enough. I don't think he has the power to do so, and I think he is going